Have you ever wondered what secrets shape a man's destiny? What hidden choices carve the legacy he leaves behind? Stay with me, because today we're pulling back the curtain on one of the most silent yet devastating battles men face. And the truth might just change everything you thought you knew about yourself, or someone you love. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world, we live in a time where distractions buzz louder than our thoughts, where addictions hide behind bright screens and silent scrolling, and where struggles simmer beneath the surface of our lives, unspoken, from pulpits, unshared across dinner tables, and unacknowledged even in our closest relationships. Among these hidden wars, perhaps the most quietly destructive, especially for men, is the battle with lust and self-gratification. Today, I won't speak with shame. I refuse to speak with condemnation. Instead, I want to talk with truth, clarity, and a conviction that cuts through the fog of excuses. Because the truth is what sets us free. And the truth is, there's so many men live believing an illusion, the dangerous lie that what they do in secret will stay buried in secret. They convince themselves that their private choices, the moments behind locked doors when the world is asleep, have no power to stain their character, corrode their relationships, or tarnish the legacy they dream of leaving. But my friends, this lie is one of the greatest deceptions we will ever face in life. Why? Because the sobering reality is that your private life is never just private. Every secret shapes your thoughts. Every hidden choice molds your heart. And over time, those private moments carve out the man you will reveal to the world, whether you want them to or not. Long before the world ever tastes the fruit of your habits, the roots of your decisions are growing deep in the silence of your daily choices. I've had countless conversations with older men. Men who built careers, led families, wore the masks of success. Men who've sat in boardrooms, stood in pulpits, or smiled in family portraits. And when they finally open up, there is a hauntingly consistent confession: they don't weep over what was done to them. They weep over what they chose in secret. They look back with hollow eyes on the countless hours spent nurturing hidden habits, especially those born from lust, loneliness, or the numbing boredom of an unfulfilled life. They remember moments when a quick escape felt harmless, but each time they gave in to that moment, they were feeding something inside them, a beast that would one day become nearly impossible to silence. What felt small, what felt manageable, what seemed like a harmless indulgence, grew into a stronghold. It invaded their marriages, poisoning intimacy and trust. It dulled their passion, draining the vibrancy out of their purpose. It split them in two, one face, polished for the world, another lurking in the shadows when the lights dimmed and the door clicked shut. What so many men fail to see is that sin, yes, let's call it what it is, when left unchecked in the private corners of our hearts, will eventually seep into the public spaces of our lives. It slips into how we look at people, how we treat our spouses, how we lead at work, or in ministry. It changes the energy we bring or fail to bring to the people and priorities that matter most. We can fool ourselves for a season telling ourselves we're in control of our secret indulgences. But here's the unvarnished truth: they are controlling us. Because you cannot keep feeding your flesh in darkness and expect your spirit to thrive in the light. You cannot nurture lust in the shadows and still hope for love to bloom in your home. You cannot water seeds of secrecy and expect a harvest of peace. These are spiritual laws as real and unbreakable as gravity. And right now, many men live in quiet despair, imprisoned by the thought that it's too late, that the damage is done, that their story is sealed, and redemption is out of reach. But hear me now, because what I'm about to say is not my opinion. It's a truth that many older men with tears streaming down their faces will beg you to believe it is never too late. It is never too late to choose integrity. Never too late to sow seeds of faithfulness. Never too late to build a legacy worth passing down. Yes, your choices matter. Every day, every moment, every decision in the shadows matters. The world tells you that your secret life is yours alone, that what you do behind closed doors has no ripple. But life tells another story, one of marriages eroded, children wounded, potential squandered. And yet life can also tell the story of restoration, of men who decide today to break the cycle, to silence the lies, to bring what's hidden into the light. Because here's the miracle of truth: when you drag your secrets into the open, they lose their power over you. When you choose honesty over hiding, healing begins. When you plant seeds of discipline, you start to grow a harvest of freedom. It won't happen overnight. It won't be easy. But every single step you take matters more than you could ever know. So let me ask you, what do you want your life to say when you're gone? What story do you want your children, your friends, your spouse to remember? Do you want to be known as the man who was one person in public but another in private? Or the man who fought for integrity, who stumbled but rose, who refused to surrender to the darkness? Men, brothers, fathers, sons, there is still time. There is still breath in your lungs. There is still purpose in your days. You can choose differently, starting right now, because your secret life is the seedbed of your future life. Don't let what feels small today become the regret that haunts you tomorrow. You are not alone. You are not beyond hope. The world doesn't need perfect men. It needs honest men, brave men, men who will fight for their hearts and the hearts of those they love. Choose today to step into that fight. Choose today to break the silence. Choose today to start building a life where your private victories give birth to a public legacy of strength, love, and unwavering integrity. Yes, time has passed, perhaps years, even decades. But hear me now, today is still a day you can reclaim. The story of the man you are becoming is not yet over. It is still being written, word by word, choice by choice, in every small moment you live right now. Don't let the heavy burden of yesterday's shame chain you to a future without hope. Don't let what you did in the dark rob you of the light that could flood your life today. I've spoken to countless men who've spent entire lifetimes hiding their battles, locking their struggles away behind polite smiles and busy schedules, terrified of being judged, terrified that exposure would mean rejection, ruin, or endless humiliation. But deep inside, what they truly long for, what we all long for, whether we admit it or not, is peace. Not just a quiet house or a silent phone, but a soul at rest. A heart no longer torn apart by the exhausting war between who we really are and who we pretend to be for everyone else. That kind of peace doesn't come from controlling everything around you or from silencing your urges with sheer willpower. No real peace begins the moment we stop living a divided life. It begins when we make the courageous choice to bring our private battles into alignment with our public face. To live as whole men of integrity, men of honor, men of discipline, men who can stand tall, not because they've never fallen, but because they have chosen honesty over hiding truth, over pretense, light over darkness. So today I urge you, not with condemnation or shaming words, but with deep compassion and brotherhood, do not swallow the lie that what happens in secret doesn't matter. Do not believe for a second that your private choices are irrelevant to your future. They matter more than you could ever know. Because what you do when no one is watching, in the quiet hours, when the world is asleep, is the truest measure of the man you are becoming. And whether you realize it or not, the legacy you are building will not stand on how well you impressed others or the image you crafted on social media. It will rest on how faithfully you walked in truth when it was just you and God in the sacred, unobserved spaces of your life. Every day you get to choose, will you feed the seeds of secrecy that grow into shame? Or will you plant seeds of courage that bloom into freedom? Choose wisely. Choose today, because tomorrow always begins with today's decisions. We live in a world that markets pleasure like candy, that wraps instant gratification in shiny wrappers, and flashes it on every screen, whispering to you from every corner of the internet. We're told it's freedom. We're told it's harmless. We're told it's natural, normal, even necessary. Especially men who are bombarded with messages saying that chasing pleasure is what makes them truly masculine, truly alive. But let me share something today that many older men have learned only after a lifetime of regret. Pleasure is not your purpose. It was never meant to be your compass. Pleasure is a gift, a blessing that should overflow from living out your purpose. It was never meant to replace purpose. But when a man makes pleasure his North Star, when he chases every craving, he starts to hollow out the deepest parts of his soul. He becomes a man who might look alive on the outside, but feels dead inside. For a fleeting moment, yes, the body might feel satisfied. But have you noticed what happens after the soul is left emptier than before? Thirstier than ever, like drinking salt water when you're dying of thirst. The truth is, many men don't turn to masturbation out of pure lust. Often, it's loneliness, the ache of a heart that longs to belong. Or it's boredom, the restless hours when life feels gray and meaningless. Sometimes it's pain wounds, left unhealed sorrows that no one sees. It becomes a quick escape, a ritual that numbs for a night, but leaves you feeling more alone than ever when the morning comes. These moments of secret indulgence offer the illusion of comfort, but they never fill the emptiness. They only deepen it, making the heart feel heavier. The nights feel longer, the silence more suffocating. The great tragedy is not that men struggle with these battles. Struggle is part of being human. The real tragedy is when they stop fighting, when they wave the white flag in silence and make peace with the habit that is slowly killing their passion, their strength, their spiritual clarity. Over time, what was once a guilty pleasure becomes a stronghold. It starts to define the man's life, draining his energy for what truly matters. His marriage, his fatherhood, his calling, his creativity, his faith. He forgets he was made for so much more than chasing fleeting moments of self-gratification. He forgets he was created to build, to protect, to love fiercely, to live with courage, and leave a legacy of honor. If you're hearing this today, know this: it's not too late. You are not too far gone. You are not beyond hope or healing. But you must choose to stand up. You must choose to fight again, even if you feel weak. Because freedom isn't found in perfection, it's found in persistence. Every time you resist, every time you confess, every time you reach for help instead of isolation, you are reclaiming ground in your heart and mind. So let me ask you, what kind of man do you want to be remembered as? What kind of father, husband, friend, brother, or son? Do you want to be known as someone who ran from the battle, or someone who rose up again and again, even when he fell? Do you want to be known as someone who hid in the dark, or someone who walked bravely in the light? Today is a new page in your story. You can choose to write a chapter of courage, a chapter of discipline, a chapter of truth. You can start building a life where your private choices strengthen your public life instead of sabotaging it. A life where peace isn't just something you long for, but something you wake up to every morning. Because the truth is, your life matters. Your choices matter. And you were made for more than surviving the night. You were made to shine in the day, to build a legacy of faithfulness, to love and lead with a whole heart. Choose today to start living like the man you were created to be. They were created for truth, for service, for love, for the noble pursuit of mastering themselves. But when a man chooses to live only for what feels good in the moment, he misses what is truly good, what is lasting. He settles for fleeting moments when he was born for a meaningful mission. And here's the other truth, a truth many men don't realize until they're looking back across a lifetime of choices. What you feed will always grow. This isn't just a law of nature or biology, it's a law of the heart and soul. If you feed lust, lust grows like an unruly vine, spreading through every corner of your mind. If you feed discipline, discipline grows like a mighty oak, steady and strong. If you keep feeding fantasy, it will soon overpower your desire for real, messy, beautiful reality. A man who repeatedly gives himself to self-gratification, especially when it's fueled by pornography or endless fantasy, is slowly wiring his brain to expect intimacy without the effort, pleasure, without any responsibility and satisfaction, without the price of sacrifice. That kind of shortcut is a counterfeit version of life and love. It's a hollow imitation that falls far beneath the dignity of who you were created to be. Because every single time you choose to indulge that urge without pausing to think you aren't just passing a harmless moment, you're forming a habit. And every habit quietly carves a path in your heart and mind. The more often you walk that path, the deeper it becomes, and the harder it is to step away to any other way of living. Older men will tell you with tears of regret in their eyes that they wish they had learned to resist sooner, that they wish they had drawn the line earlier, because once something takes root, it takes time, tears, and tremendous humility to uproot it. But let this give you hope, it can still be done. You are not powerless. You are not hopelessly trapped. But you must be ruthlessly honest with yourself and brutally honest with God. You must stop pretending the small choices don't matter, or that what happens in private will never spill into the public parts of your life. Because the small repeated choices you make every single day are quietly building the future you will step into. The only question that matters is what kind of future is it going to be? So I urge you with all the compassion in my heart, don't feed what will one day grow into chains of bondage. Feed what will grow into strength and freedom. Feed discipline. Feed truth. Feed real connection with people who care about you and connection with the God who sees you completely. And you will discover, perhaps to your amazement, a deeper peace beginning to settle over your life, because the man who chooses to live for purpose will always outlast the man who only chases pleasure. And in the end, he will leave behind more than a few fleeting moments. He will leave behind a legacy that echoes through the lives of everyone he touched. For deep in every man is a longing to be seen, to be fully known, and to be truly loved. Not for the mask he wears or the image he carefully constructs, but for who he truly is at the very core of his soul. That's what every man longs for, to be seen and loved as he really is. We were made for intimacy, not just the physical kind, but the kind that goes deeper, emotional intimacy, that connects hearts, spiritual intimacy, that ties us to something bigger than ourselves, and relational intimacy that grows in trust and sacrifice. But when a man turns inward to satisfy these deep longings in isolation, when he reaches for self-gratification, for fantasies spun in his mind, for moments stolen in the dark, he trades something priceless for something hollow. He numbs the ache instead of healing it. He quiets the hunger for a night, but awakens an even deeper emptiness by morning. And over time that isolation hardens into a prison with invisible walls that keep him from what he most desperately needs. Because true intimacy cannot thrive in secrecy. It withers in the dark. It can't bloom where there's fear of being found out. Real intimacy demands honesty. It demands courage. It calls us to open ourselves up first, to God who already sees it all, and then to those we trust so we can receive love that doesn't just stimulate for a moment, but transforms us for a lifetime. Yet so many men settle for a counterfeit version of intimacy, a fleeting escape alone with a glowing screen, or a fantasy behind closed doors. These moments promise everything: comfort, excitement, connection. They ask nothing of us, requiring no vulnerability, no patience, no sacrifice. But when the screen goes dark and the moment ends, we're left emptier than before, lonelier than ever, haunted by the very ache we were trying to silence. Because what we're truly craving, a love that sees, knows, and stays, can never be found in isolation. We were not designed for loneliness. We were created to give and receive love in the context of trust, sacrifice, and presence. And yet, this is exactly where many men get stuck, paralyzed in place. They whisper to themselves, "It's too late for me." They believe the sinister lie shame repeats over and over in the quiet hours. You're too broken, too far gone, too stained to ever step into the light again. You've struggled too long, hidden too much, failed too often. You're beyond repair. But hear me clearly, without the slightest hesitation. Shame is a liar. It speaks in the voice of fear, but it never speaks the voice of truth. The truth is that no matter how long you've been trapped in secret struggles, no matter how many times you've fallen on the same battlefield, freedom is still within reach. Grace does not expire with time. The mercy of God is not measured by a ticking clock. His mercy is here, it's now, and it's available for you, right where you are. You are not defined by your weakest moment. You are not your addiction. You are not your shame. You are not what you did in the dark. You are who you choose to become when you step into the light. But you cannot walk in freedom if you stay silent. You cannot break the chains while pretending you don't need help. The first step isn't perfection, it's honesty. It's the courage to confess your need, to ask for help, to invite light into the dark corners you've guarded for far too long. That's where real change begins, in the raw, unguarded moments when you admit the truth and reach out for support. That's where healing starts to grow, not in your strongest moments, but in your most honest ones. Because here's the truth: every older man wishes he had understood sooner. Time is short. Life passes faster than we think. The strength you carry today will not last forever. The habits you feed now in these quiet moments of choice will shape the man you become tomorrow, the man your family, your friends, your community will see. Don't wait until your body is worn down, until your heart is heavy with regret, before you decide that change truly matters. Don't wait until the people who need your love, most your spouse, your children, your friends, grow tired of waiting for you to show up with your whole heart. Don't wait until your secrets have already cost you more than you ever imagined you could lose. Because every day you spend feeding secrecy is another day stolen from the man you were created to be. The clock is ticking, yes, but not to scare you, not to push you into panic. It's ticking to remind you of a beautiful truth: today still belongs to you. This moment, this choice, this day, they are gifts you still hold. You can decide now to draw the line, to reach for light, to plant seeds of honesty and connection that will blossom into a life of integrity and peace. Because you were not made to live alone with your struggles, weighed down by silent battles. You were made to walk in freedom, to stand in truth, and to love and be loved without fear. And that journey, the one that can change your life and your legacy, begins the moment you step into the light. This moment right here, right now, can become the turning point of your life, not the day you become perfect, but the day you choose to become brutally honest with yourself. Not the day you conquer every battle, but the day you decide you will no longer surrender to the same old lie, the day you refuse to let shame and secrecy steal another moment of your purpose. Because The man who chooses truth over hiding connection, over isolation, and courage over the weight of shame, that man will discover the path to real freedom. He will breathe easier. He will walk in peace. And he will leave behind a legacy that echoes far beyond his years. There's a silent message many men have carried for far too long, a belief passed from one hurting heart to another. If it feels good, it must be right. Though few dare to say it aloud, it quietly shapes decisions, guides choices, and leads men down roads they later wish they had never walked. It's a message the world shouts from every advertisement, every movie, every temptation. Pleasure is the goal of life. But let me remind you of something deeper, something more true. Pleasure was never meant to be your purpose. Purpose is greater. Purpose is rooted in your calling, in obedience to what you know is right, in the daily practice of discipline that builds your strength. Pleasure can be a companion to purpose, but when pleasure becomes your aim, you will always find yourself chasing satisfaction and never finding peace. Like a man dying of thirst who keeps drinking salt water, you'll discover that every sip only makes you thirstier. Many men reach for masturbation or fantasy not because they are wicked, not because they are beyond hope, but because they are exhausted, empty, and aching. They are longing for something real, something lasting, something that will truly satisfy, and in their desperation, they reach for whatever promises comfort. For a fleeting moment it seems to work. The distraction soothes the ache. The moment numbs the loneliness. It quiets the mind. But afterward, there is only silence. There is guilt that hangs heavy in the chest. There is the same old ache, still waiting, still unsatisfied. Because the truth is, this no temporary pleasure can heal a heart that is hungry for meaning. No moment of escape can fill a soul that longs for connection. You were not made to spend your days serving your appetite. You were made to walk in strength, in love, in discipline, in a mission bigger than yourself. You were created to give your life away in love, not to consume moments that leave you emptier than before. And every man must face the unchanging truth: what you feed will grow. This is not just a law of nature like plants and trees. It is a law of the soul of the heart. Feed lust, and lust will grow stronger, demanding more and more of your energy, your attention, your time. Feed fantasy, and your desire for reality will shrink until the real world feels dull and lifeless in comparison to the illusions you've cultivated in your mind. Every time you surrender to a habit in secret, that habit grows deeper roots in your heart. You may tell yourself you're in control. You may believe it's just every now and then that you can stop anytime you choose. But habits built in darkness have a way of sinking their claws into your identity. One day you wake up and realize this thing you thought you controlled now controls you. It's not just something you do anymore, it's starting to define who you are. It's quietly shaping the man you're becoming. But hear this clearly: you were not created for addiction. You were not destined to be chained to something that robs your joy, your focus, your integrity. You were made for intimacy, real, honest, vulnerable connection. Not the kind you find on a screen, not the fleeting rush of secrecy, but the kind that comes when you open your heart to someone you trust, when you let yourself be fully seen, flaws and all. Because that's what every man truly craves deep in the places he rarely talks about. To be known, not just entertained. To be seen, not just stimulated. To be loved for who he truly is, not for the mask he wears. Imagine for a moment what your life could look like if you chose connection over isolation, honesty over hiding, truth over shame. Imagine waking up each day with a clear conscience, your energy freed up to pour into your family, your dreams, your purpose. Imagine building relationships with people who see you fully and love you still. That is what you were made for. That is what your heart is really seeking when you reach for the easy escape. You were designed for relationships marked by trust, by sacrifice, by presence. Relationships where love grows deeper over time instead of disappearing with a click. As we explored earlier, you were made for deep connection, not empty moments of escape. And now let's look closer at the battle every man must face. We long to be loved truly and deeply, not just to find a brief sense of relief. But masturbation, especially when fueled by pornography or lust, offers only a counterfeit version of what our hearts crave. It whispers promises of connection, but delivers nothing but isolation. It mimics intimacy in the moment, yet leaves us lonelier, emptier, more desperate than before. And it's right there in that hollow aftermath that shame starts to speak its poison. It tells you that because you struggle, you must be broken beyond repair. Because you've fallen again, you're disqualified from love and purpose. Because you've repeated the same mistake, you're beyond help and hope. But hear this clearly. Shame is a liar. It sounds convincing because it knows your past, but it can't see your future. And the truth that can set you free, is this: freedom is still possible. Redemption is still available. Your story is not over. You are not your sin. You are not defined by your lowest, weakest, or most secret moment. You are not the sum of what you've hidden. You are someone deeply, unconditionally loved by a God who already knows everything about you, yet still calls you out of the shadows, not to crush you with judgment, but to heal you, to restore you, to give you life. You don't have to keep living torn between the man you show the world and the man you really are inside. You don't have to stay divided, exhausted, ashamed. You can live whole. You can walk in truth. You can walk free. But you must choose to stop feeding the lie and start fighting for what is real. It won't be easy. There will be days you want to give up, but it will be worth it. Because no man has ever stood at the end of his life and said, "I wish I had hidden longer in the shadows." But countless men have reached their final days and whispered with regret, "I wish I had stepped into the light sooner." There comes a moment in every man's life when he must pause and ask himself the hardest question of all: what am I truly living for? And if we're painfully honest, many of us would have to admit that we're living for comfort, for escape, for fleeting pleasure. We carry heavy loads. We face stress and disappointment. And we instinctively reach for something, anything, to ease the pressure, to quiet the ache inside. For many men, that something becomes a quiet, hidden habit. Masturbation turns into a ritual not just of the body, but of the heart, a secret way to cope, to feel something, to forget the burdens for a few minutes. But listen closely. Pleasure is not purpose. It never was. It never will be. Purpose is what gets you out of bed when life is hard. Purpose is what gives you the strength to keep going when pain and sacrifice seem overwhelming. Yes, pleasure can be a byproduct of living with purpose. But when pleasure becomes the goal, you will always end up empty, because that kind of satisfaction fades fast and leaves you hungrier than before. Soon, you're chasing a feeling instead of building a life. That isn't strength. That's slavery. And here's a sobering truth that becomes clearer, heavier, and more urgent with every year we live. What you feed always grows. That's an unchanging truth of life. You can't keep feeding lust and then expect purity to magically blossom in your heart. You can't keep sowing seeds of secret indulgence and hope to reap a harvest of peace. Because every time you say yes to that hidden desire, it doesn't simply go away. It grows bolder, stronger, greedier. It begins innocently enough with a spark of curiosity. Then that curiosity turns into comfort, a soothing escape from stress or loneliness. Before long, comfort morphs into craving something you feel you need. And, if left unchecked, that craving hardens into a chain, a chain that quietly wraps around your mind and heart. It never happens overnight. It creeps in gradually, quietly, softly. That's exactly how the enemy of your soul works. Not by terrifying you outright, but by lulling you into complacency, by whispering that it's harmless, by convincing you it's no big deal, by telling you it's perfectly normal that everyone does it, so why worry? And yet no one talks about what it steals from you. No one talks about the dull numbness that begins to fog your days. No one warns you about the growing disconnection you feel from the people you love, the inability to enjoy real face-to-face intimacy, because intimacy can never grow in isolation. A screen can't love you back. A fantasy doesn't know your soul. A secret habit doesn't see your heart. You weren't made for artificial connection. You were made for something infinitely richer, to be fully seen, to be deeply known, to give and receive love, not just in the physical sense, but emotionally and spiritually, with all your heart engaged. But every time you turn to the empty comfort of self-gratification, you're quietly training your heart to settle for a false version of what it was designed to crave: real, lasting intimacy. And every time you settle, your heart grows more used to shadows than light. That's where shame comes in. Because once the pattern is set and the cycle repeats, guilt begins to build like a heavy fog. Shame's voice grows louder, whispering that it's too late for you, that you've been stuck in this for far too long, that you can't change now, not after everything you've done. Shame says, if people really knew who you are behind closed doors, they'd turn their backs and walk away. Shame starts to wrap itself around your identity so tightly that you can no longer separate who you truly are from what you've done. It makes you feel like you are your sin, that you are your struggle, that you are the worst of your mistakes. But lean in and hear this clearly. Shame is a liar. It's a master thief. It uses your past to rob you of your future. It keeps you silent when you were born to speak up. It keeps you hidden when you were made to stand free in the light. Shame will do anything to convince you that change is impossible, that hope is foolish, that grace is out of reach. But here's the truth, that shame can never erase. You are not what you've done. You are who God still calls you to be. You are not defined by your secrets or your slips. You are defined by the one who created you with purpose and calls you by name. You can walk away from the pattern. You can start fresh. You can live in the light instead of hiding in darkness. But you have to act, and you have to act now. Not tomorrow. Not after one more time. Not someday when it feels easier or more convenient. Because the final sobering truth is, this time is short. Life moves faster than we think. The opportunities you have right now won't be here forever. And the longer you wait, the deeper the roots of your habits will grow. But never forget, even the deepest roots can be torn out by grace. Even the heaviest chains can be shattered by mercy. So don't wait for rock bottom to find you. Don't wait for the perfect conditions that will never come. Don't wait until your secret costs you something, or someone you love more than life itself. Choose freedom now. Choose purpose now. Choose honesty now, because when you do, you won't just change a habit. You'll rewrite your future. And that future, a future of peace, purpose, and integrity, is worth everything. There's a path many men walk quietly alone. It's a path that doesn't look dangerous at first glance. A path shaped not by loud open rebellion, but by countless small surrenders. By little compromises whispered to the heart late at night. By hidden moments that feel harmless. By private indulgences that start as a comfort, but slowly become a prison. At first it feels natural, even normal. The world will nod along and reassure you there's no harm in it, that there's nothing wrong. But listen to those who've walked that road longer, who bear the scars of years spent chasing shadows. They will tell you a different story. They will tell you how emptiness grows, how passions fade, how relationships suffer, how purpose slips through your fingers, one careless choice at a time, and how desperately they wish they had turned back sooner. As we saw in the last section, the small, quiet choices you make in secret can slowly but powerfully reshape not just your habits, but your heart, your mind, and your entire future. And now let's take a deeper look at what it truly costs when we chase pleasure as if it were life's ultimate goal. Because men who have walked this road for years, men who've borne the hidden scars of chasing fleeting comfort, will tell you a sobering truth. When you make pleasure your main pursuit, it inevitably becomes a trap. Pleasure was never designed to lead your life. It was always meant to follow purpose, to be a gift along the path of meaningful living, not a destination in itself. You were created for more than a temporary escape. You were made for purpose, for mission, for a life brimming with significance. Yet here's the quiet tragedy so many fall into when stress builds like a storm, when boredom creeps in like a thief, when pain slices deep into the soul. We instinctively reach for what offers instant comfort. Over time, especially through the secret habit of masturbation, we train our hearts to settle for comfort instead of fighting for purpose. We feed a hunger that never truly gets full. And the truth stands unchanging across every generation: what you feed will always grow. That doesn't just apply to your body, it's equally true for your thoughts, your spirit, your character, and the legacy you will leave behind. When you feed your impulses, those cravings don't stay quiet, they grow stronger, louder, more demanding. When you feed your self-discipline instead, your inner strength grows deeper, steadier, more reliable. The small decisions that seem insignificant in the beginning can quietly swell into something so large it begins to shape your thoughts, drain your time, and weaken your confidence in ways you never saw coming. But the danger is even bigger than the action itself. It's the ripple effect, how that single choice infects everything else in your life. Over time, the craving for quick release begins to overshadow your natural, God-given longing for real connection. Because true intimacy can never be found alone in the dark. Screens and fantasies offer a shallow promise of satisfaction, but they always leave you emptier, more alone, more desperate. Real intimacy requires vulnerability. It demands patience, presence, and the willingness to give, not just to take. And these are things masturbation will never teach you, no matter how many times you turn to it. Each time you reach for self-gratification as comfort, you're training your heart to expect pleasure without giving anything in return. And that expectation doesn't stay neatly contained in the dark. It bleeds into every relationship you have. It affects how you look at people. It influences how you offer love and how you receive it. It shapes how you lead, whether in your home, your friendships, or your work. And here's a sobering truth that few men talk about until the damage is already done: your private life shapes your public legacy. You can pretend no one sees that it's your secret alone, that you can keep it separate. But the habits you build in private will always bear fruit in public, either good or bad. They silently mold your eyes, your thoughts, your energy, your emotional resilience. They sap your confidence, dull your passion, and slowly divide your integrity until you find yourself living two lives: one face for the world, another in the shadows. A man with a split soul, a public persona hiding a secret life, will never taste true peace. He can't lead with conviction, love with depth, or live with the bold freedom he was created for, because his heart is split in two. And yet, as the consequences start piling up, shame slithers in to finish what secrecy began. Shame whispers cruel lies in the dark, that you're beyond help, that your past has forever disqualified you, that if anyone truly knew your struggles, they'd recoil in disgust and leave you alone. But hear this clearly, let it sink deep into your soul: that voice is not from God. Shame is a deceiver. It thrives in silence and grows stronger in isolation. It wants you to believe you are alone and beyond hope, so you'll never dare to reach for help. But grace stands at the edge of your darkness, inviting you to step into the light, not because you've earned a second chance, but because you are loved. Loved deeply by the one who knows you completely sees your past, your present, and your potential, and still calls you by name. Remember this unshakable truth: struggling does not disqualify you. Giving up does. There are men older than you, men who've carried regrets for decades, who will tell you with tears in their eyes that their greatest sorrow isn't that they fell, but that they stayed stuck in the same cycle for years. They will tell you what I'm telling you now: time is short. Every day you spend caught in secrecy. And shame is a day you could have spent in freedom, in peace, in purpose. One day, your opportunity to change will run out, because your time, your strength, and your closest relationships won't last forever. But today, yes, today, this moment is still yours. Don't wait for a crisis to jolt you awake. Choose to wake up now. You don't need perfection to start. You don't need every answer or a guarantee you'll never struggle again. You just need a willing heart, willing to be honest, to humble yourself, to take one small but courageous step toward freedom. Because when you decide today to stop feeding what's destroying you and start feeding what gives life, you'll find what your soul has longed for all along: peace, strength, and lasting purpose. And when you make that choice, you'll see you were never made to live enslaved to hollow comforts. You were created to walk free, to love with an undivided heart, to lead with integrity. That is a life worth living. It begins now, right here in this moment. So let's leave behind empty, counterfeit comforts together. Let's step into the light, not with secrecy or shame, but with courage, truth, and hope. Because when you know better, you can live better. And when you live better, you leave a legacy that blesses, not burdens, the next generation.